Let me tell you something that took me way too long to understand. If you feel unhappy growing up in South Korea, you're not broken. It's not just you. And no, you're not crazy. The system you're living in, that pressure you feel every single day, that's real. You're not imagining it. I used to think I was the problem, that maybe I wasn't working hard enough. Everyone else looked fine on the outside, smiling, studying, and getting high grades. But deep down, most of us were breaking. And I didn't realize until later that it wasn't just about me. It was the entire environment, the speed, the silence, the fear of failure. It's like being on a treadmill that never stops, and you're forced to run even when your legs are shaking. I first noticed it when I visited Korea and stayed with a friend. He was only 16, but he came home every night past 10 p.m. from school. Not from hanging out, from classes. And after dinner, he opened his books again like it was normal. I was shocked. But he didn't even complain. He just sighed and said, "That's life here." That one sentence stayed with me for years. There's this invisible weight in South Korea. And if you've lived there, you know exactly what I mean. Everything is about appearance. How well you do in school, how you look, who your parents are, how much money your family makes. And even if you're just a kid, it's like the world expects you to already be perfect. But here's the part they don't want you to know. Even when you check all the boxes, top school, slim body, good manners, you still don't feel happy. You're constantly comparing yourself to the next person. You're always thinking you're not enough. And that messes with your head, especially when you're growing up. One time, my friend didn't get into the high school his parents wanted. His mom didn't speak to him for 2 days. Imagine being 15, already dealing with your own doubts, and your own mom treats you like a failure. That's not just pressure, that's pain. Stay with me, because in just a few moments, you'll see how this all connects. What if I told you that no matter how much effort you put in, society might still make you feel like a loser? The truth is, South Korea's education system doesn't just prepare you for success, it prepares you to survive. And survival doesn't always feel like living. When I was in high school, I remember getting messages from Korean students online. They would study from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day, no joke. And they weren't proud of it. They were exhausted, burned out. Some of them even told me they cried in the bathroom at school so no one would see. That hit me hard. But most people never realize this. The pressure doesn't end when you finish school. It just changes shape. If you make it into a university, now the competition is for jobs. If you get a job, now it's about getting married. Then it's about having a perfect family, a perfect apartment, raising kids who repeat the same cycle. There's barely any time to breathe. And you know what's worse? Nobody talks about it out loud. People are afraid to be honest. Like if you say, "I'm tired," someone will think you're lazy or weak. So you hide it. You smile at school, nod at your parents, and cry into your pillow at night. I remember seeing a video of Korean students sleeping on the subway because they were too tired to walk home. And it reminded me of when I worked night shifts. I was barely surviving, but I pretended I was fine, just like them. And pretending eats you alive slowly. But here's something they don't teach in school. Rest is not weakness. Saying, "I'm not okay," isn't a failure, it's human. And that's the craziest part. The system makes you believe that your worth is tied to performance, that you're only valuable if you win. But how do you even define winning in a place that keeps moving the goalpost? Just wait till I tell you what happens when someone finally breaks down from all this. When a system is built to wear you out, it doesn't matter how strong you are. Eventually, you break. I had this friend, let's call him Min. Smart guy, always polite, did everything his parents told him. Got into a good university. You'd think he was set, right? But one day, he just stopped replying to messages, vanished. A week later, we found out he had checked into a mental health clinic. He told me later, "I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't even know who I was." That's what happens when you grow up in a world where being tired isn't allowed. You learn to numb your feelings until one day they explode. And the scary part? This isn't just one or two people, it's everywhere. But it's hidden behind filters, smiles, and silence. And I get it. It's easy to feel like you're the only one struggling, especially when your Instagram feed is filled with perfect selfies, vacation photos, and straight A report cards. But here's the truth. They're struggling too. They just don't show it. I once compared myself to a Korean YouTuber my age. He had 1 million subscribers, perfect skin, an expensive apartment. I thought, man, I'm so far behind. But then I found out he had taken a 6-month break for depression. And suddenly I realized I wasn't alone. And neither are you. Most people never realize this, but the silence around mental health in South Korea is what keeps so many people stuck. It's not that people don't want help. It's that they're scared to ask, scared they'll be judged, labeled, shamed. And if you've ever felt that way, I want you to know you don't have to carry this alone. What if happiness isn't about being perfect, but about finally being real? Let me show you what happened when someone chose real over perfect. I met this girl through a forum. Let's call her Hana. She was 19 and had just dropped out of one of Korea's top universities. When I asked her why, she said, "I woke up every day feeling like a machine. I couldn't even remember why I started." She wasn't lazy, she wasn't failing, but she had been trying so hard to meet expectations that she lost herself in the process. She told me that the scariest part wasn't leaving school. It was facing her parents. They were ashamed. They told her she was throwing her future away. But Hana didn't back down. She moved out, worked part-time, and started learning animation. Now she's creating stories online with people from all over the world watching her work. She doesn't have a fancy degree, but for the first time, she feels free. And that's the thing nobody tells you. You can break the cycle. It won't be easy. People will judge you. But choosing yourself doesn't make you a failure, it makes you brave. I get emotional thinking about her story because I also had moments where I wanted to quit everything. I remember standing in front of the mirror, eyes red, asking, "What am I even doing all this for?" And that question changed everything. Most people never realize this. But the unhappiness you feel growing up in South Korea isn't just about school or pressure, it's about being disconnected from who you really are. You're taught to follow a path, but nobody asks what your heart wants. And when you're finally honest with yourself, that's when the real change begins. So what do you do when the system makes you feel invisible? You stop waiting for permission and give yourself the space to breathe. You take small steps. Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's talking to a friend, maybe it's just being kind to yourself on a day when nothing goes right. But here's the part they don't want you to know. The system doesn't win when you succeed. It wins when you forget who you are. Stay with me, because the last thing I want to tell you, it's the most important. If you're feeling unhappy right now, like something's wrong with you for not being able to handle it, I want to say this as clearly as I can. You are not broken. You are reacting to a system that teaches people to perform, not to live. And if that system has made you feel small, numb, or hopeless, you're not the only one. I used to think happiness was something I'd earn after success, after the money, after the approval. But that day never came. You know what did come? Burnout, disappointment, feeling like I was chasing a dream that wasn't even mine. It was a checklist someone else gave me. But then, I started asking real questions. What makes me feel alive? What do I love, even if nobody claps for it? And the answers weren't big or flashy. They were quiet. Writing, helping people, going for walks, eating cheap food with friends and laughing at dumb jokes. And I realized that maybe happiness doesn't show up after a finish line. It shows up when you stop running away from yourself. If you're growing up in South Korea, or even outside of it, but living with the same kind of pressure, I want you to know that you don't need to wait for someone to save you. You can take your own hand and say, let's start healing now. Even if it's messy, even if you don't have it all figured out, that first step, that's what matters most. Because when you choose to be real, even in a world that wants you to be perfect, you start something powerful. You remind other people that they can be real too. And that's how things change, not all at once, but one honest voice at a time. So here's your reminder. You're enough. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to feel, and you're allowed to rewrite your story. And if nobody else tells you this, I will. I'm proud of you for even listening this far. That means you're already starting, and that's more than enough.